So here we are in Chipping Norton Town Hall with Jane Wenham-Jones. Now, Jane, you are a very talented writer, but you also do an awful lot of other things in the writing community. So would you like to run us through some of the many hats that you wear?
Well, I'm here now because I interview at Chipping Norton every year, and I've been coming since its very first festival, and Claire McIntosh asked me if I'd come and chair a panel, and that's one of the things I really love doing, interviewing other writers or celebrities or actors or whatever about their lives and their work. It's you know, the sound of your own voice is a bit more of a pleasure sometimes than sitting staring at a blank screen trying to churn out 80,000 words that mean something.
Very true.
Yes, I was going to say, what is the favourite thing that you do, and interviewing and getting out to festivals and stuff? That's
I do love interviewing and presenting. Yes,
yeah.
I present the Romantic Novel of the Year awards every year. For example, I sort of compare and do the intros, and then we have a celebrity to rip open the envelopes. So that's lovely too. But I mean, writing is great. Writing is what I do. I do columns and a bit of journalism. I've written 7 books. I've got one in progress at the moment. So yeah, I've got a sort of patchwork career of bits and bobs. Do a bit of creative writing, tutoring sometimes.
Brilliant. Because you're doing the same thing all the time. It does get boring, and writing is a very solitary, can be very lonely sort of existence, can't it?
Yes, it can be a bit gutty when you're there. I've got a very short attention span too, so I'm not one of those writers that can glue themselves to their screen for 10-hour stretches. I admire them, but I can't do it myself.
So, how did you come to be a writer in the first place? What brought you into the world of writing?
I think it was short story competitions first. I was basically at home with a child. When my son was about 2, I think I started writing properly. I started sort of writing commercially when he locked me in a cupboard, which I tell the story of that. I won't go all the way through it now, but I tell the story in my book, Want to Be a Writer. But I started off with short story competitions and the women's magazines, basically, my weekly, Woman's Weekly, Woman's Realm as it was then, and so on and so forth. And I did that for 2 or 3 years, perhaps longer. And then I wrote my first novel in the late 90s.
Excellent. And do you now prefer the novel form to short stories? Do you still write short stories?
I very rarely write short stories. I sometimes do if there's a book to promote and I'm asked to do one, then I might. But if my short work tends to be non-fiction now. I do columns. I do a monthly column for Woman's Weekly Fiction Special. You know, they have a monthly magazine with about 20 stories in it, and I do a sort of column about my life for that. Until recently, I wrote a regular column for my local paper. I write for Writing Magazine. I'm the agony aunt for Writing Magazine.
Do you no longer do the column for the local paper?
No, the columnists were not in the new budget, basically, when it got taken over by new owners.
Oh, that's a shame, because I liked your column.
Yes, I do a little bit for them from time to time, freelance, but I don't do it regularly.
Okay. Something that I was kind of interested in asking you've written 2 kind of help books, Want to Be a Writer and Want to Be a Writer that we've heard of. Do you think that anyone can be a writer, or do you think you have to have kind of a special something about you to write? Do you think it's something?
Well, I think everybody, obviously, most people can write, but no, I do think you have to have a certain talent. It's it's the only art form where we sort of pretend that everybody can do it. Because I mean, we all sing in the bath, but that doesn't mean to say you're going to appear in the opera house. I can draw little pictures, silly little squiggles for my own books, but I wouldn't expect to have an art exhibition. But there is this sort of idea that everybody's got a book in them, and my answer to that normally is, well, in some cases it should stay there.
Yes.
But having said that, I mean, I do writing courses myself, and as Jane knows, because she's been out there, I teach a couple of times a year at Chez Castillon in France, where that Jamie and Mike run, and it's fantastic. And I do think that if people have a basic talent and an interest and an enthusiasm, they can really learn their craft. You know, if you've got that sort of natural rhythm and love of words and expression and, you know, an imagination, then you can learn the editing skills.
That's right.
But if you just haven't got any appreciation of what actually makes a good piece of writing, then I think you're struggling. I mean, I'm always wary when people want to write a book, and so you say, what sort of books do you like reading? And they go, oh, I haven't really got time to read. You know, and you always think, well, you know,
Yes.
If you can't appreciate other people's
If you
talent,
don't love words, then you
Yes.
can't. Exactly.
whereas somebody that writes, you know, a great outpouring of passion, and, you know, there's no punctuation and it's not paragraphed and it's a bit repetitive in places, but there's all that passion there,
Yeah.
that can be sorted.
Yeah.
You know, I remember somebody saying to me years ago when I started writing, everything can be sorted in the edit. And it's very true, you know, as long as you can get a first draft, you can transform writing with the right editing, can't you?
Absolutely. Yes. I have a sort of meme thing stuck on my wall that says, get it written, but then get it right, which may even have come from you.
I think I said that in my one of my writing magazine columns,
Yeah.
actually. But I don't know whether I invented it, but I certainly did say that
Yeah.
in one of my books or my writing magazine columns.
Because trying to get it right first time can sometimes be quite inhibiting to the writing process. Getting the ideas down, getting your story told, and then coming back and making it as good as it can possibly be is a much more successful way of working with it.
And it's really pleasurable. I love
Yeah.
that minute when you've got the first draft and you think, right, okay, the story's there. You know, I've got a book. Now I'll go back and start playing with it and shaping it. And
it's a bit like
tightening
sculpting,
it up.
isn't it? You take a lump of rock and you hack out the sort of basic form of a person or whatever, and then you put in the fine details of all the features and stuff like that and make it look really superb. But yes, if you haven't got the ability to sort of even hew the basic shape, then you're never going to make a world-class piece of
Well, I
statuary.
I wouldn't like to be discouraging to anybody who wants to write, because if you want to write, you should write, and you know, you don't have to be published. You know,
No,
some
absolutely.
people write very happily for years, they're not published, and it's enough for them to spend the time doing
Yes,
it.
just
And why
enjoy-
not?
Absolutely.
enjoy
And
Well,
why
if you
not?
enjoy the process and you enjoy telling the stories and you get something out of it, it's cathartic or whatever, and then absolutely everybody should you know, it's like there's nothing like singing in the bath, as you say. There's no law to stop you singing in the bath. It's when you decide that you're going to turn that into a CD and try to say it to people.
Yes,
that
exactly.
becomes,
So-
you know, okay.
Yes, if you want to be published, then obviously you've got to treat it professionally and see it as a commercial commodity that you've got to, you know, people are going to pay money for, so it's got to be good.
So what do you prefer writing? The non-fiction kind of advice and teaching things, or the fiction novels?
I love the novels once they're finished. I think you always feel daunted at the beginning of one because it is so many words and you've got a whole plot to sort out. So short pieces sort of fulfill my need to get something done quickly, and it's a quick fix.
Yeah.
You can write it, send it off, get the cheque, see it in the magazine a month later, and it's, you know. But they're different things.
Yeah.
You know, so I enjoy both.
Okay, I'm sure you've been asked this question before, but of your fiction novels, which is your favourite?
Well, as they always say, it's like being asked to choose between
Yeah,
your children,
children.
really. I mean, I love the first one. Raising the Roof is my first one, so that's very special because it's my first one. Perfect Alibis is probably the most original one because it's such an unusual idea. And it's probably, I did about 4 drafts on that novel and I had a really good editor on it. And I think it's probably very well crafted now because I kept I had a very good editor who kept suggesting different bits. And so it was really well worked on. One Glass is Never Enough is the most sort of personal book because that was based on my experiences of running a wine bar. And it's set in my own hometown. And it's sort of, there's quite a lot in there of real people, and that not real people in the book, obviously, because otherwise they'd be able to sue me for libel.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it was inspired by real events. So that's sort of, and there's quite a bit of me in it. It was quite funny actually because that heroine there is quite a bit of me in her, and when I was trying to get that book published, a couple of editors turned it down because she was too unlikable, and one said she's very vain and selfish, so I thought that put me in my place. And Prime Time was great fun to write, and that was based on quite a lot of my own personal experiences on daytime TV. And that got shortlisted for the Romantic Comedy of the Year, so that was very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's funny because as you're going through them, you're thinking, oh yes, I really loved that one, that was my favourite. Oh no, I really loved that one. That one was my favourite. So yes, I can see how different, because they're very different.
And the wannabe books have been lovely, particularly the first one, Wanna Be a Writer, because so many people wrote to me about that, because I think that was the first sort of book that was sort of very irreverent. You know, most how-to books are quite worthy, and they sort of tell you, you must do this and you mustn't do that, and mine was, much more like get a large glass of wine, a bowl of crisps in place first, and
that's advice I can deal with.
But the great thing about the wannabe books is that it's not just your advice. It's not you sourced advice from other writers and editors
absolutely.
and agents. So it's not just you telling people, oh, this is the way I do it, and therefore it's the right way. It's a whole conglomeration of different pieces.
Yes, it is, that's right. I interviewed over 100 different people for those books, and so it's scattered through with the other people's tips and the way they did it, and then I've got the sort of quotes from the people at the back as well, giving advice. So yeah, I wanted to do that. It was sort of based on my writing magazine column, where I quite often call in an expert, so-and-so has written 12 books and this is how she does it. Because there are so many different ways to do it. There's as many different ways of writing a book as there are writers, and I always sort of think, when people say, no, what you must do, you must write out character studies. I'd rather watch paint dry, chew my own leg off than sit and write character studies, But other people like to, and that's what they do. And if other people want to have index cards or charts or whatever,
Excel spreadsheets.
You see, it was interesting listening to Ian Rankin yesterday, that he's now on his 21st or something. Reader's book, which is spanned 30 years, and he has no document that details the information that he's leaked out over the years, over the books, about Rebus. He just keeps it all in his head and hopes that he remembers.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose he probably feels he knows him so well that it's instinctive. I mean, when I write characters, I don't, sometimes creative writing tutors say, write a list down. Do they like tea? Do they like coffee? Do they smoke? Do they not smoke? Well, I just sort of instinctively feel she's going to be a cup of tea sort of woman. This one's going to drink lots of black coffee. Yes. It's an instinct thing. I don't feel I need to write it down on a piece of paper. But that is impressive. I mean, he must have an immense mind. I am off to interview Tony Robinson shortly.
And Jane and I will be in the audience.
That's lovely. So it's been lovely to talk to you.
And you, Jane.
Go off and get myself
that's fine,
together.
because we are running out of time.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
We're going to learn how to sparkle in the slush pile.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
So,
with Jo.
Yes. So thank you very much for your time,
indeed.
Jane. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
And you. See you later.
Bye-bye.